Hi everyone, it's Jay Egersdorff here discussing game week 35 of the Fantasy Premier League. We're still in the midst of game week 34. Pretty cool that you've got games every night after work, but pretty hard work for the heart rate if you're like me, a manager that's trying to contest mini leagues and trying to get up the overall rankings. So I'm sitting 77 points already this week, so we've still got the Burnley-Chelsea game and the Leicester-Southampton game to come this week. So fingers crossed that could be a three-figure overall score. Hovering around the sort of 2,000 overall mark, flitting between sort of 1,000 and 2,500. So we'll see where that lands. And then ahead of us, right around the corner, we've got this exciting game week 35. Bit of a weird one because we don't have many fixtures happening. So I'm going to talk this week about the haves and the have-nots. So the haves are the people that are lucky enough, like me, to have their free hit chip. A bit of my ideas on where I think you should be going with that. And then the have-nots, that's the people that, unfortunately, free hits the first time it's been used in the game. So they might have used it earlier in the season, not perhaps applied the strategy as maybe they'd have hoped. On the basis that this game week is going to be quite lucrative, I think, for those who've got the free hit. So if you have got the free hit, I think there's a structure I've put together that I think you need to work your team around. I think you need 3 Liverpool, 3 Man City, 1 each of Everton, Arsenal and West Ham, and 2 of what I've described as the relegation battlers. So that's people from Crystal Palace or from Stoke. I think the rest of the teams in there's Newcastle, isn't there? There's West Brom. I probably overlooked them. I've even overlooked Burnley, and that's on the basis that I think if Stoke are going to stay in this division, they've got to win that game on Saturday, irrespective of the opposition. They're running out of matches. They're letting that last-minute goal against West Ham when they really needed 3 points. So if they don't get 3 points on Saturday, I think they're 5 adrift. And that's before we know what happens tonight with Southampton. Maybe they'll get a win over at Leicester. It probably seems unlikely, but you never know. So I think for subs, maybe Burnley players like Kevin Long, bargain defender, he could be good as a sub. I've seen quite a few people putting drafts on Twitter and things about, here's my free hit team, and they've got this really nice 15 players. And I think people are missing a trick there with the strategy. So I've drafted out my team. I've got 1 player that is which is Kevin Long actually. In fact, I've got 2. I put El Neni in as well. He's a really cheap midfielder, and Kevin Long as the subs. And it's because I don't think you need a full bench. As long as you're happy that the 11 that you've picked are almost certain to play based on the information you have and maybe the press conferences, why do you need an expensive bench? Those points are just going to go down the drain. You're not going to use them. So why not use that money to put it into your team? So, why do you need a reserve goalkeeper? Yes, there's a chance that your goalie might fall ill overnight or get injured in the warm-up, but it's pretty unlikely. And even if that happens, you've still used the money to invest in 10 other premium, really, really good players. So just have a play around with the budgets on that, and maybe there's a sub or 2 that you could just use as fodder, and might be a really budget cheap option that hasn't even got a fixture that week, and it doesn't really matter. I think with Liverpool, people wondering, is Klopp going to rest people ahead of the European match? Personally, I think he will play a full team. I think we need to look out for the press conferences today and on Friday, whenever that is. And the reason I think he'll play a full team is something that you hear spoken about in football. It's understanding the difference between match rhythm and players needing to be rested or rotated. So often when you see players rested, so we saw last night United rested Sanchez, the night before, unfortunately for me, Tottenham rested Ali. So that's because that player will have built up some fatigue, either mentally or physically, and it's felt that he just needs taking out the team and giving a bit of a break. That's very different to match rhythm, where players, if you look at Liverpool, they've not had a fixture for it will be 7 days. They played last weekend, and then they've got this European game in the week. So that's not having a match for 10 days. So if you're a pro sports player, or even if you play to a fairly amateur level, you'll understand that you do need a match every so often to keep your body in top shape, ready for the bigger challenges. At the same time, if you have too many of those bigger challenges in a short space of time, that's when we need the rest, and that's when you need the rotation. So I'd be surprised to see people like Firmino, Salah, what's he called, the fullback, Chamberlain, Alexander-Arnold, these sorts of players that we have seen rested in previous weeks. I think they may get game time. Maybe they'll get subbed off early, but I think Klopp will want them going into that match ready to hit the ground running, and then rest them for the Stoke match, which is in the middle of the two European games. Likewise, I think Man City will be full strength, and I think they will be until the end of the season for a couple of reasons. One, they're going after some pretty impressive records, so can they get to the 100-point mark? Can they get the most goals scored ever in the Premier League? Different things like that. And also, I think there's an air of integrity there. I think whilst Pep may give games to players like Zinchenko and Phil Foden just to give them some game time, I don't think we're going to see these guys playing 2-3-4 games towards the end of the season. Pep has integrity. I think he will want to give the teams they're playing a fair chance, because they are playing teams that have their own agenda. So maybe that's relegation or European qualification, particularly relegation. I know they've got quite a few teams that are down there, so it doesn't seem fair to play the reserves against those teams, having played the full strength team against other teams earlier in the season. So moving on to the have-nots, so people who don't have their free hit. Don't go into panic mode. So don't look at your opponents and think, crikey, they're going to have 11 players and I might only have 7, so I'm going to take 3 or 4 points hits to catch them up. You need to just work on the basis of damage limitation this week. You've played your free hit at another time, so you've gained the points advantage in a previous week. So don't go throwing that away by chucking a load of points down the drain, because your revenge mission is going to be in game week 37, because it's likely the players that you're getting rid of this week will have a double game week because they don't have a game this week. So you need to just limit the damage. Have you got Salah? If you go back to my formula before, have you got maybe a Liverpool player or two? Have you got a Man City player or two? Can you squeeze in? Have you got maybe a Newcastle sub in your team, or a West Ham player that you could just use to maybe pick up a couple of points this week and just limit the damage? But look at the bigger picture. It's 4 game weeks left to go. Every point at this stage of the season is important, because if you do a -4 in game week 2, you've got 37 weeks to catch up the 4 that you've lost. If you do a -4 in game week 35, you've only got 3 or 4 weeks left to actually recoup the points. So every point becomes more valuable. So keep your feet on the floor and don't go too mad. I think captains, we talked about needing to look at the press conference for Klopp. So if he confirms that Salah's going to play, that looks pretty inviting. Likewise, Sterling and Jesus at home to Swansea in their title. They're going to want to put on a show, aren't they, if they've just won the league. I don't think they're getting the trophy. I think they get that in the last home game. So it's going to be a party atmosphere. It's not going to be that much of a party. And of course, Aubameyang, I always say that name wrong, I know. Arsenal have a good game, but be wary just because of the European thing. Arsenal on the flip side to Liverpool, talking about match rhythm, they seem to be, Wenger seems to be quite happy to have a European team and a league team at the minute, kind of 2 different teams. They've sort of written off the league. So poor old Aubameyang is basically playing in the Arsenal reserves, but still getting points. But is that enough to be the captain? Not sure. Finally, I just wanted to shout out, I was walking down the street the other day, off to get my haircut actually, and a guy stopped me in the street and said how much he enjoys the YouTube videos. So thanks very much, mate. That was really really nice of you to stop and do that, and gives me a lot of encouragement. So thank you all for the support. Keep the comments coming, keep subscribing, keep reaching out to me on Twitter. I'm looking at doing some more stuff obviously for next season, so be keen to hear your ideas on what you'd like to see, what you'd like to hear. I'm open to suggestions. I've got some pretty interesting plans myself, so let me know what you've got in mind, because I'd be keen to scale this content even bigger for you guys. So have a great game week and enjoy the matches tonight. Cheers.